Welcome to Congregation Bethel in beautiful Tyler, Texas. While we may not be together physically, spiritually, and virtually, we come together this evening to commemorate Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Commemoration Day, as a community. I'm Rabbi Neil Katz, and I am honored to share this moment with you for the next half hour or so in video form, a commemoration of the events of the Holocaust. In years past, we've had Holocaust commemoration programs here at the temple. People will come together physically into our sanctuary, members of our congregation, members of the wider community. We would listen to prayers, hear music, light candles, hear special speakers. Well, we're going to do that tonight, not in the physical space, but in the virtual space as we come together. I want to begin with a song. And the story behind the song is really the story behind the young woman who wrote the lyrics of the song. A woman named Chana Senesh was a young Hungarian Jewish girl who in 1939 emigrated, left Hungary, to go to then Palestine. She ended up eventually moving on to a kibbutz along the coast of Israel. And while she was there, she used to write poetry. And as she wrote poetry, she would sometimes do it while walking through local neighborhoods. And just north of the kibbutz where she lived, along the coast, is the town called Caesarea. Some people pronounce it Caesarea. And there she writes a poem simply called A Walk Along Caesarea. Lord, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand, the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, and the prayer of man. Although today we say the prayer of the heart. This particular poem, A Walk Along Caesarea, later gets placed into music. But why? Why was she such an important voice connected to the Holocaust? Because Chana Senesh, a young woman, went to Egypt to be trained by British military on how to be a paratrooper. She ended up paratrooping in the mid-40s, I think 44, into Yugoslavia, made her way to the Hungarian border, and her entire goal was to go there to save Jews who were being slaughtered throughout Europe. She was caught at the Hungarian border. She was ultimately tortured. She was put into prison. There was a brief trial where she was found guilty of treason, and she was executed before a firing squad in 1944. Chana Senesh is a heroine in not just Israel, but throughout the Jewish world. Not only for being a woman who gave up her life trying to help other Jews, but also left behind a legacy of poetry. And that poetry was set to beautiful music. So it's appropriate that we begin this evening hearing the words of Eli, Eli, sung by the congregational soloist Megan Pierce and played on organ by Jeffrey Ford.
Oh
I spend a lot of time in East Texas going to schools and churches and meeting with people to talk about the Holocaust. And often they say, well, you're going to be here for 20 minutes, explain the Holocaust. And of course, it's impossible. But what I have found is that so many people, their entry into even understanding what the Holocaust was, one little piece of the puzzle, is the diary of Anne Frank. They either read it in school, or they saw a production of it, or they saw a movie version of it. But the words of this young woman, Anne Frank, cooped up in an attic in Amsterdam as she was trying to hide from the Nazis, has become, again, the entry point for so many people to come to any study of the Holocaust. I am thankful that we have one of our congregational members, Laura May Abels, who is going to share with us a reading from Anne Frank's diary.
From the Diary of Anne Frank. Who has inflicted this upon us? Who has made us Jews so different from all other people? Who has allowed us to suffer so terribly up till now? It is God that has made us as we are, but it will be God, too, who will raise us up again. If we bear all this suffering, and there are still Jews left, when it is all over, then Jews, instead of being doomed, will be held up as an example. Who knows? It might even be our religion, from which the world and all peoples learn good. And for that reason, and that reason only, do we have to suffer now. We can never become just Netherlanders, or just English, or representatives of any country for that matter. We will always remain Jews, but we want to, too.
Thank you, Laura May. If you come to Congregation Bethel in Tyler, as soon as you walk in the front door, before you come inside, on the left is a beautiful statue commemorating the Holocaust, and the name of the statue is Triumph Over Tragedy. It's a beautiful bronze statue, and many people walk past it on their way into and out of temple all the time and really don't stop and contemplate it. When I get groups come here to the temple, sometimes I'll take them out to the courtyard, and we spend a few minutes talking through what is on that physical sculpture, because it is an incredibly intricate and beautiful piece that tells a story. It was donated to this congregation when this new building was built about 30 years ago. It was gifted by the Hurwitz family. And Phil Hurwitz wrote a little speech that he gave at its dedication some 30 years ago. And he gave me a copy of that speech. Recently, I had a friend of mine read an adapted version of Phil's speech, and we made a video. So that way there's a bit of history that's recorded on video along with Phil's words. And so I'm going to share with you now the video called Triumph Over Tragedy, the story of the Holocaust sculpture here at Congregation Bethel.
This extraordinary sculpture depicts in both beautiful and horrific detail the history of the Holocaust. It is a monumental study that represents a unique combination of commemoration and celebration. This work is titled Triumph Over Tragedy, and it presents more than 100 figures of men, women, and children. It tells the tragic story of the Nazis' attempt to exterminate the Jewish people. The statue unfolds in 5 concentric circles, mounted one above the other. The rings of this panorama are, at their summit, surmounted by a towering figure holding aloft a Torah, symbolizing the eternal survival of Judaism, despite the devastations of repeated religious persecution. The sculpture portrays harrowing images of the Holocaust, such as the Nazis' infamous book-burning rituals, the German troops' mass arrest of Jews, the omnipresence of barbed wire, the death trains transporting innocent cargoes of human lives, murders by hanging, and flames of the death camp crematoria. The monstrous establishment of the concentration and extermination camps are symbolically represented by the artist's recreation of the front gates of Auschwitz, emblazoned with their notoriously false greeting, Arbeit macht frei. Work makes you free. This statue portrays stories of dehumanization and horror. Yet the piece of art ends on a note of hope and promise for the future. One can find the metamorphosis of barbed wire transforming into branches of laurel and olive leaves. And on the top, the true triumph over tragedy is the continuation of the Jewish people, symbolized by the Torah scroll being held high. Survivor Elie Wiesel, may his memory be a blessing, once warned that to forget the Holocaust is to kill twice. To the 6 million Jews who perished, to the millions more who died at the hands of hatred, we must always remember.
Another powerful voice when it comes to Holocaust commemoration and Holocaust education is that of Holocaust survivor, philosopher, therapist Viktor Frankl. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Ultimately, Viktor Frankl recognized that the goal of humanity is to make meaning in a meaningless world, to search for beauty when apparently there is none. These were the lessons he drew from the Holocaust, and I have a member of our congregation, Ren Stein, who is going to share a reading from Viktor Frankl.
Even when humanity was inhumane, there was a need to see some beauty that could be appreciated. We hear the words of Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl on how to live life, even while being a prisoner, even in places of despair. He wrote, "One evening, when we were already resting on the floor of our hut, dead tired, soup bowls in hand, a fellow prisoner rushed in and asked us to run out to the assembly grounds and see the wonderful sunset. Standing outside, we saw sinister clouds glowing in the west, and the whole sky alive with clouds, of ever-changing shapes and colors, from steel blue to blood red. The desolate gray mud huts provided a sharp contrast, while the puddles on the muddy ground reflected the glowing sky. Then, after minutes of moving silence, one prisoner said to another, 'How beautiful a world can be.'"
As we commemorate Yom HaShoah, when we come together physically, we light candles. But of course, we're not doing that this year. We are still going to light candles. We're going to light 6 candles, one for each of the 6 million Jewish people who died in the Holocaust. And then we're going to share some flowers that are commemorating the non-Jews who helped save the Jewish people, what we call the righteous Gentiles. I tell many people when I travel around, the Holocaust represents both the worst of humanity and the best of humanity. To light these candles, I've asked members of our congregation and members of the wider community to share a reading connected to each candle. And so after each reading, there will be a video of a candle being lit and flowers being placed. So let us take a moment in this virtual space to light 6 candles and offer flowers of memory and of thanks.
We light this candle in memory of all the women, young and old, who perished in the camps. Mothers who witnessed the deaths of their children, women who risked all to bring new life into the death camps. Mothers who had to choose the life of one child over another, or their child's life over their own.
We light this candle in memory of the children, of young lives snuffed out before they had a chance to live, dreams never fully dreamt, let alone realized, childhoods cut short.
We light this candle for all the men that could do nothing to save themselves, their friends, their families, their neighbors. Nothing but teach them courage, dignity, and faith.
We light this candle in memory of the scholars and sages, the writers and artists who created Jewish literature and learning, and establish the patterns of Jewish life that are no more, that now illuminate our memories as we strive to be guided by their light.
We light this candle in memory of the communities and culture that were destroyed. The music of towns and villages that is no longer heard. The poetry of life that is gone forever.
We light this candle in memory of those who survived, who lived through the nightmare and began life anew. Those who had the strength to reopen their wounds, to share their stories with later generations, and those for whom the memory was too painful to bear.
We place these flowers in honor and memory of those righteous Gentiles who risked it all to save Jewish lives, who hid neighbor or stranger, who fed them, who tended their wounds, and in memory of the 5 million Gentiles who also died for doing the right thing.
Thank you to all those who shared their voices and who continue to share their light. As part of this video presentation, I felt like we have an opportunity to share things we might not be able to share if we were to come together in a physical meeting, but we can do it in video form. For those who know about this or have been to Israel during Yom HaShoah, every Holocaust Commemoration Day, they take 2 minutes and they blast the war siren for 2 minutes in Israel, and the entire country comes to a standstill. For those who have been there when this happens, it's a little eerie to see everybody come to a full standstill while the war siren is going off. It's a moment of silence. In that moment, people are thinking about the Holocaust, or they're gazing at the people around them, or they're taking in that moment of being still and quiet as a way to memorialize those who perished. And so we're going to watch the video now. It's not a video that I took. It came from ABC News, but it's a video that shows what it looks like in Israel when that siren goes off. So in your homes, as you watch this, let's take a few moments and share in that siren here on Yom HaShoah. After that moment of silence memorializing those who perished in the Holocaust, let us hear these words of poetry that are part of our prayer book in our memorial service in memory of all those who died in the Holocaust. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us, as we remember them. It's my honor to present this next segment. About 2 months ago, I had an opportunity to meet Captain William Broad from the U.S. Army. He is currently here in Tyler, Texas. Captain Broad and I immediately became friends. We realized we had a lot of the same interests, and we began talking about everything from military policy to politics to religion to comedy, movies. And one of the things he shared with me was how he personally was moved by a particular piece of military history connected to the Holocaust. And it's a video that he wanted to share with us. And so I asked him if he would come and record for us an introduction to this video, which I thought was a really wonderful way to help commemorate the Holocaust. So I introduce Captain William Broad.
Thank you, Rabbi Katz. In my studies, as I was reading about and scouring information for how the Allies liberated Europe as a student of military history, came across a very important recording from the camp at Bergen-Belsen shortly after it was liberated. In this recording, you'll hear the description by British Army officers as they liberated the camp and what they saw around them, including the prisoners that were still alive and those that did not make it on that day. This recording was transmitted to New York 75 years ago to the day of this year's remembrance of Yom HaShoah. Without further ado, here is that recording.
This is London calling North America.
The day I reached Belsen concentration camp, the 5th day of liberation, was a Friday, the day before the Jewish Sabbath. Something like half the surviving prisoners at Belsen were Jews, and the Jewish chaplain to the British Second Army, the Reverend L.H. Hardman, held an eve of the Sabbath service in the open air in the midst of the camp. It was the first Jewish service that many of the men and women present had taken part in for 6 years. It was probably the first Jewish service held on German soil in absolute security and without fear for a decade. Around us lay the corpses that there had not been time to clear away even after 5 days. 40,000 or more had been cleared, but there were still 1,000 or 2,000 around. And people were still lying down and dying in broad daylight in front of our eyes. This was the background to this open-air Jewish service. During the service, the few hundred people gathered together were sobbing openly, with joy at their liberation, and with sorrow at the memory of their parents and brothers and sisters that had been taken from them and gassed and burned. These people knew they were being recorded. They wanted the world to hear their voice. They made a tremendous effort, which quite exhausted them. Listen.
Am Yisrael Chai, the children of Israel still liveth.
I'm honored that I was able to share that recording with you today, and I hope that you appreciate the value of the Song of Hope. And today it is Israel's national anthem, Hatikvah. That song has extraordinary meaning today. 75 years later, after the singing on the camp, it's not only the song that is the spirit of the Jewish people, it also amplifies the spirit of humanity in a time of great need that we're experiencing right now. Hatikvah was once a poem, not just a folk song. And in the modern day, the tradition continues. So on a parting note, I would like to share with you the recording of modern day artist Avaya as she sings Hatikvah.
נפש יהודי הומיה ולפתי מזרח קדימה עין לציון סופיה עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי
On this day of remembrance of the Holocaust, let's not forget to have hope in times of extraordinary need and when our humanity for one another is needed the most.
Thank you so much, Captain Brode, and thank you for your service. I thought it was a fascinating thing. Not many people know about the singing of Hatikvah at Bergen-Belsen, that it got recorded. It interrupted a British military transmission. But of course, that song Hatikvah has meaning, as Captain Brode said, beyond just the words for the Israeli national anthem, but it means the hope. And hope is definitely part of our commemoration here on Yom HaShoah. As we continue in our commemoration, I would like to share the words of the Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. This is the prayer said by Jewish people at every service where we attend. And I should add that in many congregations, it is customary where only those who are in mourning stand during the mourner's Kaddish. But here at Bethel, it is a moment where we all stand together, because we're not only standing for those people who we are memorializing their death anniversaries, but we often say we're standing for those who had no one to stand for them. And we often think about the millions of people who perished in the Holocaust who had no one to say Kaddish for them. So our standing collectively is standing in their memory. If you'd like to stand, you're welcome to, or if we can just stand virtually as we hear the words of the mourner's Kaddish. If you know them, please feel free to say along. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. Be'amad yivrach cherutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon u'b'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. B'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemed kudusha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be a blessing, and may we, by memorializing them, bring a blessing to the world. Amen. One of the most important voices of the Holocaust in terms of teaching people what actually happened there. Of course, we know the story of Anne Frank, and we shared a clip of Anne earlier. We know Viktor Frankl has influenced a number of people. But the other great voice of education is Holocaust survivor and author Elie Wiesel. We have a member of our congregation, Sophie Philibert, who is going to be sharing a reading from Elie Wiesel before we close out our commemoration.
The survivors advocated hope, not despair. Their testimony contains neither rancor nor bitterness. They knew too well that hate is self-debasing and vengeance self-defeating. Instead of nihilism and anarchy, they chose to opt for man. Instead of setting cities on fire, they enriched them. Many went to rebuild an ancient dream of Israel in Israel. They all chose to remain human in an inhuman society, to fight for human rights everywhere, and its poverty everywhere and discrimination, for humankind, always. For we have learned certain lessons. We have learned not to be neutral in times of crisis, for neutrality always helps the aggressor, never the victim. We have learned that silence is never the answer. We have learned that the opposite of love is not hatred, but indifference. What is memory if not a response to and against indifference? So let us remember. Let us remember for their sake and ours. Memory may perhaps be our only answer, our only hope to save the world.
A final song in our commemoration is the song Oseh Shalom. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make some of that peace fall upon us, upon all the earth, upon everyone. And together we say, Amen. I've asked our soloist Megan Pierce and our organist Jeffrey Ford once again to sing this particular melody written by Nurit Hirsch of Oseh Shalom. If you know it, feel free to sing along.
Israel,
As we come to a closing reading for our Yom HaShoah video presentation, I'm going to share with you a reading that comes from our older prayer book called Our Beloved Martyrs. We have lived in numberless towns and villages, and in too many of them we have endured cruel suffering. Some we have forgotten, others are sealed into our memory, a wound that does not heal. 100 generations of victims and martyrs, still their blood cries out from the earth, and so many at Dachau, at Buchenwald, at Babi Yar, and more. What can we say? What can we do? How bear the unbearable, or accept what life has brought to our people? All who are born must die, but how shall we compare the slow passage of our time with the callous slaughter of the innocent cut off before their time? They lived with faith, not all, but many. And surely many died with faith, faith in God, in life, in the goodness that even flames cannot destroy. May we find a way to the strength of that faith, that trust, that sure sense that life and soul endure beyond this body's death. They have left their lives to us. 1,000,000 prayers rise whenever Jews worship. Let 1,000,000 candles glow against the darkness of these unfinished lives. And so we conclude this moment of commemoration of Yom HaShoah with that message. Let us be the light that was dimmed out that many years ago. Let us continue forth that message of faith and unity and love and collaboration when so many of those voices were snuffed out those many years ago. We ultimately are not only witnesses, we are tasked with completing their work, the work of building a world that is holy and worthy of redemption. As we came together in peace, may we go in peace. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. Go in peace.